In central Ukraine, in a densely populated region, an oasis of untouched beauty has been preserved. Almost inaccessible forests are filled with pristine natural beauty. This seeming serenity is just a respite in the intense life of the inhabitants of the Holosiyivskiy Park. After a snowy winter, spring will come, which will awaken everything living in nature and begin a new stage in the struggle for the survival of the local inhabitants. This is a natural process of life, death and rebirth. In these places of prehistoric origin, people gained strength and energy from the surrounding natural habitat. The tribes of the Scythians lived here and rituals of pagans were performed. This place of power and wealth in the center of the metropolis is indeed a unique phenomenon of nature. Secrets of the Holosiyivskiy National Park. At this time, when the crowns of the trees bend under heavy snow and the litter is covered with a thick, white blanket, nothing seems to happen here. It looks as though life in these forests has come to a standstill. Actually, this is a natural secret hidden from the human eye and requires special observation. Since 2007, 11,000 hectares of forest and marshy steppe lands have been united in the Holosiyivskiy National Park. These precious natural lands are located next to high-rise buildings and one of the main transport arteries of a populous city. Kyiv is another major metropolis, within the borders of which there are protected areas all the way from the Holosiyivskiy National Park to the Koncha-Zaspa Spa Resort and the perimeters of Kyiv. The national park is completely within the boundaries of the big city. There are not many such parks in the world. In Europe, there are parks that are not far from the capital, but there are very few in the world situated within such an area.
Але так, щоб повністю всередині і з такою площею, в принципі, одиниці таких парків у світі національних.
Most of it is 95% forest. In the south, there is a sandy floodplain terrace of the Dnipro River covered with pine forest. The northern part of the park consists of tracts with deciduous forests, and Holosiyivskiy is one of them.
Місцевість ця відома.
People have known about this park for many years. The Holosiyivskiy Monastery of the 17th century was founded in 1631 by Petro Mohyla. In Ukraine, he saved orthodoxy, and at one time, the Mykola Collegium, today known as Kyiv Mohyla Academy.
Фактично, можна сказати, в Україні зберіг православ'я в свій час і заснував колегіум Могилянський, зараз Києво-Могилянська академія, всім відома.
There are several versions of the origin of the name. The most well-known version is that the Holosiyivo means sown from scratch and is associated with the name of the archimandrite of Kyiv-Pечерsk Lavra, Petro Mohyla. On his initiative, a garden was laid on this bare spot around the hermitage. The famous educator and ardent defender of orthodoxy loved to rest here. After the death of Petro Mohyla, the cell lost its former popularity, and the garden slowly turned into a dense forest. In the possession of monks, it remained untouched, and the trees were not felled for arable land and meadows. It was a poorly populated forest with a unique wilderness, clean air, and creeks with ponds.
The
national park is partially located in a forest steppe, and part of it is in the Kyiv Polyssia. The sediments on which the soils are formed differ.
По-перше, відрізняються відклади, тобто на яких формуються ґрунти.
In the northern part, there are glacial sediments, which are the base of sandy podzolic soils, on which mostly pine trees grow. The Holosiyivskiy forest has mainly forest soils.
Наприклад, ми зараз знаходимося в Голосіївському лісі, тут переважають сірі лісові ґрунти.
They are rich and formed on lowest sediments of soil like most deciduous trees. Mostly oaks inhabited the hilly terrain formed by deep banks and dips. But over the years, the shade-tolerant hornbeam began to crowd out the mighty oaks. The diversity of the species is not limited to maple, linden, and ash. A small clearing, from which paths run like sun rays, is surrounded by an oak hornbeam forest and somewhat unexpectedly plantations of beech. The tree that is characteristic of the western part of Ukraine lives well in the Holosiyivskiy forest, adding new colors to it, especially in the autumn months.
Around
me is a part of the forest which is not typical for the central part of Ukraine. We can see plantations of forest beech, known as rastocha. This tree grows in the Carpathians in western Ukraine, but beech trees do not grow in central Ukraine. However, there are several such clusters in the Holosiyivskiy Park. The beech of around 60 years old was most likely planted on the initiative of the Agricultural Academy. Its students studied acclimatization of forest beech. In winter, when leaves fall to the ground, it seems that the trees are impossible to differentiate, but the branches spread in oak crowns are not to be confused with any other tree. The Holosiyivskiy forest is rich in ancient trees of 400 or even 500 years old. Anyone who takes a measuring tape on a forest walk can prove this. All we need is just a measuring tape. We set it at a height of about 1.5 meters, near the chest, and measure the girth of a tree. Here we see 4 meters and almost 90 centimeters. It means this oak tree is about 490 years old. At such a respectable age, trees only look as powerful and healthy giants, but in reality their wood becomes friable, less resistant to diseases, and is covered with numerous wounds. But in their hollows, more and more birds find shelter. Small passerines, owls, woodpeckers, rare birds of prey prefer crowns of tall trees. Holosiyivskiy is a home for mostly 4 species of birds. Most of them migrate to the south during the winter months, and those that remain to spend the winter in the park are fed in order to help them survive during the period of hunger. Waxwings, long-tailed tits, and some other species fly to us for the winter. To see them in the forest, even in winter, is rather difficult because they stay high in the crowns, looking for food or stay closer to human habitation. If there is an opportunity, you need to help the birds by feeding them. There are a lot of feeders, but not every type of feed is suitable for them. It can be seeds of pumpkins, watermelons, or sunflowers. But fried or unsalted seeds or sultry lard cannot be hung for tits and thrushes.
Сало несоленое можно вешать для синиц и для дроздов.
If you see a bird coming down the trunk upside down, you know right away that this is a nuthatch. Only these birds have such a unique ability. Gray, not easy to notice, and with a strong and sharp beak, the nuthatch is so active that you cannot follow how it disappears from your line of sight. We're standing and hearing a flock of bullfinches arriving. This is the first meeting this year. We cannot see, but we hear the quiet whistling of a flock of bullfinches. From time to time, a woodpecker, which is a tireless forest builder, breaks this ringing silence. Numerous animals also feel safe. Not everyone can see them in the daytime, but the tracks in the snow can determine exactly which beast ran through the forest.
Як бачите, свіжий слід.
You see a fresh trail of wild roe deer.
Кабан.
Here a boar has passed on its own, and there are traces of a fox. Here a ram. As you can see, they're protected well. Animals are not scared.
Звір не ляканий, натоптано слідів.
Simply look at how many trace tracks they left behind in the snow.
Дуже йому тут живеться краще, ніж в зоопарку.
The fact of the matter is that they live in this natural habitat much better than in a zoo. Roe deer does not even have natural enemies in the protected areas, as wolves do not enter the park. So it is easy to notice the serenely resting wild goats. Here is the trail of a rest of 13 animals, and a little further along the trail another group of 5 deer has left fresh tracks.
Потім, коли вони піднялися, ще вони погреблися, паслися, їли жолуді. Вони, де жолуді, вони собирають собі, то що вони, як би скажуть, собі, тому що вони їдять бруньки.
We can see that they grazed here and ate some acorns. They usually peel the buds on the trees, but they eat acorns to store up on fats and corn on the feeding grounds. We feed them so that the offspring will be healthy in the spring, and so they will not suffer from any disease. We add salt to enrich their diet. We constantly observe and guard them.
Ніяких хвороб, сіль заложуємо, щоб воно в раціон входило. Ну і так спостерігаємо, охороняємо і дивимося за фауною.
Hay, brooms, and corn are a delicacy mainly for elks, wild boars, and hares. Roes prefer to manage with what they find themselves: branches of trees, buds, acorns, and plant roots. This is a rare animal, which has no bile on the liver. So it is very selective when it comes to the diet, and the strong sense of smell helps roe deer understand their preferences and not to resort to eating some kind of junk food.
Дика коза – це таке специфічне животне, воно...
A goat has a lot of herbs in its diet. Here's a multi-flowered bush. They didn't finish eating the roots.
Багаторічна. Бачите, от не доїли корні, бачите?
They gnaw. Besides the things that they can find on the surface, goats get to the roots, which for them are tasty like carrots. In this way, they enrich their diet with vitamins.
Воно смачне, як морква. Вони його теж в раціон собі споживають.
Unlike the migrating elk, which also finds protection and shelter in the park, roe deer prefer not to change their habitat. Their population grows without limit. Up to 100 animals live in the park, but it's impossible to calculate their exact number. It is very difficult to capture them on the camera eye. The best time for nature buffs to catch these forest dwellers of the animal kingdom on film is during the twilight hours in secluded and inaccessible swamps of the Holosiyivskiy tract. The southern part of the park is located in the rural town of Koncha-Zaspa, in the valley of the small river Vita, which is a well-known tributary of the Dnipro River. Since 1989, the local natural areas have been protected by the reserve. This is why the tract Holosiyivskiy is considered the wildest area of the park, where the forest was not harmed by commercial activity. Old trees were not felled, new ones were not planted, and the dead wood remained untouched, contributing to the forest life as a source of food and shelter for insects. The remains of the unique Sarmatian forest remained untouched in the southern part of the park, and pines grow on the sandy terrace of the Dnipro to this day.
Ці ліси ще унікальні тим,
The uniqueness of this forest is that steppe areas were preserved. These are the remains of Sarmatian pine forest.
Остепнені ділянки – це залишки сарматських соснових лісів, які в Європі підлягають...
In Europe, they are subject to protection. Due to this, an important botanical laboratory was created here, which is called the Koncha-Zaspa forest. It occupies the whole Dnipro terrace when entering the surrounding areas of the park.
Дніпра, яка входить в територію парку.
Today, this pine forest has become a scientific testing ground for botanists and is protected as a natural cleft of international significance. But besides its scientific value, the pine forest is also important for humans as a source of fresh air. By absorbing carbon dioxide, the trees provide people with vital oxygen. A hectare of pine forest releases about 5 kilograms of phytoncides that are emitted into the atmosphere, thus protecting the environment from the effects of harmful microbes. A walk in the pine forest will replace the procedure of inhalation for people who suffer from diseases of the upper respiratory tract and lungs. As long as the natural crook near a large metropolis remains untouched, the local lands will generously provide local residents with healthy air, the virgin beauty of the landscapes, the serenity and silence of a forest, and will allow people to discover new secrets of living a healthy and happy life in a clean environment.